There's a fascinating phenomenon that happens when you become more knowledgeable about a topic. At the very same time, you'll often feel a dip in your confidence. Have you ever experienced this? I definitely have, and it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. In fact, it means quite the opposite. Usually, when your confidence dips, the more you learn, it's because you're leveling up. This happened recently. I had a student that stayed behind one of my classes, and this is one of my most intellectually curious students that I have. She combines topics from a variety of courses into the topic we're discussing. She asks me some of the coolest questions that really pushes my thought process as well, which is so fun. And we were talking about life and school, and she brought something up to me. She goes, I've really struggled with my confidence. And I told her something that she had never heard. I said, the reason that you feel less confident sometimes is because you are more intelligent about that specific topic or situation. And once you see this pattern that I'm going to share today, you're going to better understand this kind of dip in confidence.
1, 2, whoo!
Welcome to Authenticity Lab. I'm Dr. Kelsey Miles. I'm a chemist and a musician, and this is the podcast you come to when life feels a little off and you want to feel more like yourself again. I teach you how to think like a scientist and create like an artist, because developing the life that you want requires you to have critical thinking skills and creative insight. And today we're exploring a sneaky kind of low confidence that shows up in highly intelligent and thoughtful people like yourself. So look, I have students of all levels of ability. I love them all. And it's so fun to get to teach a class and to try to figure out what each student needs, because every student needs something different. Some students are really capturing the ideas that I'm sharing, and they're asking the next questions, and some students are really behind and just trying to write down what you just wrote up on the board. Some professors will teach to the middle. I like to throw out little buoys for both sides of the extremes, a buoy for the students that are behind. Maybe I slow down and answer a more difficult question that is off topic, but useful for the student that is ahead, giving the student that's behind time to catch up. It's really a fun dance. And my favorite part about teaching is when I get to really understand the nuance of how a student thinks. And how a student thinks is different. Every student is different. I have some students that can quickly correct their problems, and I have some who cannot look at an answer key and really understand what they did wrong. Neither one is better than the other. They just have different, I like to call them strengths in the way that their brain works. And this is why we need people of all different thinking styles. One of the thinking styles that I find to be really interesting is the student that is extremely intelligent, very curious, very thoughtful. And sometimes those students are the ones that lack confidence. Sometimes those are the people that you would never, you don't even understand why they lack confidence. And I've been there too. I remember vividly when I went from my bachelor's degree and went to grad school. I was getting my PhD from the Ohio State University. It's my first year. And I felt so confident. And by the time I got my master's there because my advisor didn't get tenure. And then I went on to get my PhD from University of Wisconsin-Madison. And I remember when I finished and I earned my doctorate, I actually had less confidence than I did when I first started. This kind of story comes up again and again for highly intelligent, thoughtful people. The deeper you go into a subject, often you'll inevitably hit this dip of confidence. And this happened to one of my students recently. She stayed behind class and we were having a great conversation. And she shared with me that she's struggled some with confidence. And luckily I knew this student enough to be able to say this with certainty. And you should have seen her eyes when I said this. And I meant it with my full heart because I kind of saw myself in her a little bit. And this student in particular is extremely curious, very intellectually solid, very good at connecting and combining ideas and coming up with really creative questions. And so I told her, I said, the reason that you don't feel confident is because you're smart. That's what I've told her first. And she kind of looked at me and I said, when you become really knowledgeable about a topic, the more you learn about it, the more you also learn what you don't know. So you sit in a place of knowing, and you also are fully aware of all the things that you don't know. This causes you to be aware of the uncertain parts that you don't know, which then causes you to lose confidence. But in reality, you only lost confidence because you are knowledgeable. She said, you should have seen her. And she goes, no one's explained this to me like that. And that makes so much sense. And sometimes that's all the perspective shift we need. So I wonder if this has happened to you. If you've started to learn about something and maybe you felt confident in the beginning and then you kept going and then you lost that confidence. When you become really aware of what you don't know or what could happen in a situation, I get that feeling of lack of confidence. It doesn't feel good. But for me, when I started to recognize when my confidence goes low, it's because I'm leveling up. And in many ways, the more depth we get, the more knowledge we gain about something, and the less confident we feel, it's because our standard has increased. This student has kept rising, and this is part of where that confidence goes away. But it really is just a reflection of how far she's come. I want to give you another example from my personal life. So when I was first started as a musician, I was so confident. I remember picking up the guitar, and literally 6 months after that, I was playing my original music at open mics. And I didn't know anything about even how to plug in a guitar and things like that. But boy, I was nervous, but I was confident in doing it in front of people. I didn't think to myself my songs weren't good enough or something. And then fast forward to now, my last album, after that came out, I started to question whether or not I was really a songwriter because I had come out with that one album, but I was struggling a little bit for my next one. And I remember my confidence just not being as high with the decisions I was making around songwriting. It's the same concept. When you're really new at something, it's easy to be confident because you don't even know what's inside that topic. And we run blindly with full confidence, also with no knowledge. And then the moment you start to learn about something, you go, wow, there's so much I don't know. So here's the pattern that once you spot it in yourself, you're not going to look at this lack of confidence the same way. So first, what happens when you learn more, your awareness of the complexity of the situation increases. So now you're aware of how complex something is. And then second, your standards increase. And when these two come together, this is where your confidence dips. And if you don't catch this pattern, it can really feel like something's wrong with you, but there's nothing wrong with you. You're just leveling up. And this is where thinking like a scientist and creating like an artist really come together in a beautiful way. If you approach this like a scientist, you're going to keep asking questions. You're going to keep observing things. And you don't take it personally when things start to feel a little uncertain. Scientists love it when things are uncertain. That means there's something we can test and have fun with and play with and try. And the second part is creating like an artist. And a true artist fully expresses themselves, not because they know exactly what the song will look like or the painting or the book that they're writing. They create because they have to. They want to. So when your awareness of the complexity of something increases and you start to lose your confidence, it's in that moment that you know that you need to keep playing. You need to keep going. You need to keep moving forward and trying things, because confidence does not come from you sitting in that uncertainty and judging yourself. Confidence actually comes from you taking action. I would love to know if this has ever happened to you. So please comment below and let me know your story. Just remember that self-trust is built one experiment at a time. So be bold, be curious, and be you. And I'll see you in the next episode.
Yeah, that house will always call you.